Hi, I'm Anne-Marie from brambleberry.com and soapqueen.com. Thanks for joining me on today's episode of Soap Queen TV. I'm going to show you how to make these adorable Domino soaps using melt and pour soap. These adorable soaps are scented with a very masculine, clean fragrance called Tobacco and Bay Leaf from brambleberry.com. For our base, I'm going to use a combination of goat's milk melt and pour and honey melt and pour. Swirling these two bases together gives me the beautiful natural color of ivory that Dominoes used to be made out of. We won't need to add any color because the combination of the goat's milk and the honey melt and pour produce a beautiful color on their own. But to create our black dots, I'm going to use Black Oxide. First, disperse your black oxide. Use 1/8 teaspoon by volume and 1 tablespoon of rubbing alcohol or isopropyl alcohol. Mix this in well using either a spoon or, if you really want to get it super mixed in with no clumps, use a mini mixer. This will give us the perfect black. Set your colorant to the side and now chop up 5 ounces of honey melt and pour and 5 ounces of goat's milk melt and pour. Add your 5 ounces of honey melt and pour and your 5 ounces of goat's milk melt and pour into a heat-safe container and melt it in the microwave on 20 or 30-second bursts. Check every 20 or 30 seconds and stir in between bursts until your soap is fully melted. Add 0.1 ounce, so 1/10 of an ounce, of the Tobacco and Bay Leaf fragrance oil and give it a good stir. You want to make sure all of that fragrance oil is fully incorporated in. If it's not, it can pit and pockmark your mold, ruining it. Pour your melted soap base into the bottom of a Guess square tray mold. Finish it off with a few bursts of rubbing alcohol to get rid of any excess bubbles that have formed. Let your soap harden up for at least 1 to 3 hours until it's fully solid. Take a straw. Notice I'm using a slightly larger straw than your typical straw. This is about 1/2 centimeter in diameter, but you could use a traditional straw. Just push it down into your soap base and then kind of turn it while pushing it down. Pull the straw directly out. Notice a little bit of the soap comes with it. That's okay. And there's a good looking cutout there. Repeat that again and again in a domino pattern. Remember that 2 squares make 1 domino. So be thinking of your pattern while you're making your holes. This one didn't really come out all that well. I'm just going to use this cleanup tool. You can get these from brambleberry.com to make that a little more circular. That looks better. Now that all the dots are made, it's time to start pouring. Now, I learned by trial and error and figured out that if I just pour the black soap now, the black soap just sort of seeps underneath that ivory layer. So we're going to create a seal. Melt 1 ounce of the honey melt and pour soap in the microwave. This does not take long to melt, just about 20 to 30 seconds. Be careful, you could easily boil that soap in the microwave. Spray rubbing alcohol liberally all over your first layer. There we go, and then use a dropper to just form a seal, a very small seal, in each of the dots. You'll have most of your 1 ounce of melted melt and pour left after this. There we go, all filled up. Now we're ready to make our black soap. For the dots, melt 6 ounces of honey melt and pour soap in the microwave. Remember, cut those up into small little bits before you melt them. Melt on 20 to 30-second bursts. Once your soap is fully melted, add 1/2 teaspoon of the dispersed black oxide. You can see if it's dark enough by putting a little bit of something that's white colored in there. Is that opaque enough? If not, you can add up to 1/4 teaspoon more of your dispersed black oxide. Don't add much more than this because if you add too much of the black oxide, it will lather black or gray in the shower. Temperature is important. Monitor your temperature and make sure it's around 125 to maximum 130 degrees. If it's much warmer than that, it will melt your first layer. Once your soap is at the right temperature, add fragrance. Add 0.2 ounces of fragrance oil to your black soap. Spray alcohol on that layer. Spray it liberally. Allow that second layer to harden. Now, melt 6 ounces of honey melt and pour and 6 ounces of goat's milk melt and pour in the microwave on 20 to 30-second bursts. Stir in between bursts to make sure that that soap is melting evenly. Just like with the second layer, make sure that your temperature for this third layer is between 125 and 130. You don't want to accidentally melt that second layer. Add the rest of the fragrance to this layer. Stir, stir, stir. Remember, we don't want any fragrance oil that's not fully incorporated in. Spray alcohol on that second layer. Spray it liberally. It will help those layers stick together. Now gently pour down the sides of the mold. For your final finishing touch, spray with alcohol and allow the soap to harden for 2 to 3 hours before you attempt to pop it out. Finishing and cutting the soap is easy. Pull gently away from the sides of the mold. Notice the airlock is breaking. Don't force your soap. If it's not ready to come out, wait for another half an hour to 45 minutes. Gently push down on the top and, oh, there we go. Take a non-serrated knife and gently and firmly just start cutting in the areas where there are cut lines. It's a nice thing about this mold. You don't have to freehand anything. Remember, the dominoes are 1-2 squares, so be thinking of your design while you're cutting. This mold yields 8 total dominoes. Once you've got it all cut up, your 8 bars of domino soap are ready to be wrapped. Wrap in shrink wrap or saran wrap, and they're ready to use right away or give away or sell. Until next time, thanks for joining me on Soap Queen TV. Happy soaping!